Welcome back. Discipline to Win, episode 43. Today, Nick Frazetta and I are going to talk through, you've started your business, you're growing your business, you've listened to us talk about doing deals in the marketplace, and you want to learn more about what types of deals do I do? How does that deal selection process look like? What are your options? So today we're really going to go through deal selection, how you choose what type of seller to work with, how do you position yourself as the premium buyer? All these different things that you might want to know of in whatever industry you're in, how you go about all these different things. So, Nick has seen 99% of the deals we've done. Nick, I'll toss it over to you. Basically, what have you seen differently about our process from the very first deal we did together a little over 2 years ago, and everything along the way to the spot that we're in today and the process we go through now?
Yeah, so it's a completely different animal from the standpoint of our actual organization. When we did our first deal, it was, I believe, six of us, and now we stand today with 45 people. So that's a huge differentiator is why is that person going to sell to your organization if your infrastructure is exactly the same as their infrastructure? Usually when somebody is looking to do either a succession plan or the sale of their business in some capacity, they're looking to go to a place that it upgrades the services that they currently offer. It's either more, there's more people, there's better services, there's more expertise. So at the beginning, we obviously had very little of that. Now, the individual who we purchased, we definitely had more infrastructure than that person. We had more bandwidth, we had more individuals. Um, but I think it's almost necessary. Our first deal that we did, and I'll be the first to say it was not a good deal. It was a bad deal. It didn't work for us. It was a deal that we really didn't make any money off of, but it was so necessary because if we did not do that deal, we wouldn't have known how to structure deals that were way more important. This was a much smaller deal in our industry. It was small amount of assets compared to the size of deals that we do now. So I think it's almost necessary when you are getting into the game that don't be afraid to do a deal that is bad. Don't be afraid to fail at a deal. Now, you want to make sure that it's not a massive deal so that it crumbles your company. Do a deal that's well within your range and you know, okay, even if this deal goes bad, I'm either going to be break even or I'm going to lose a little bit of money, but it's not going to cripple me. I think it's almost necessary to do that because unless you have past experience in doing M&A, or maybe you come from a private equity background or a banking background, it's almost impossible to structure your first deal completely correctly or completely in a way that you're going to make a lot of money off it or you're going to assimilate into your business in a way that makes sense. So that's what I saw for our first deal, and I think it led to us doing deals in a manner that was much more effective. So I'm thankful that we did that deal, and I guess that was kind of when we first started out, and that was getting into our now world of M&A that we do a lot of. So what was your original thought process of going into that? And I'll kind of kick the question back to you of what have you now learned and how have you restructured your pitch when you're going into these new deals that we're starting to do at larger scales?
Yeah, before it was like, and when you're starting out anything, you can't really be picky. You got to just take whatever you can get. So in the beginning, it's more of like, you're basically, I mean, you're always going to sell yourself no matter what industry you're in or no matter what you're doing. That's a part of it. But in the beginning, all you have to sell is yourself. To what has changed along the way is like when you've done anything successfully, now you can sell the system, the process. You're selling your success that you can show of, your body of work, that what you've done. So I think that, now for me, after doing all the different varying size and structures of deals we've done, and going into these now, it is all about talking through, this is our process. These are the types of people that we work really well with. This is, how we can pay you. Here's our financing, structure. This is our timeline. Like we now have, a whole package to just show sellers what the whole process looks like with us, what the timeline looks with us. So when someone knows very quickly, if they're sitting down with us and they're sitting down with someone else, they know that we are an institution that, has done this at scale and can execute on it, not just some person that's selling themselves and just pure energy and belief, which you have to always have that, but it gets way more on the team, the process, the machine than just you as a person. And it's a fine line you have to walk too, because you're always going to have to pitch yourself. And there was one deal where I don't think I pitched enough of myself, and the only way we closed it was having to go back and then double down and then do nothing but sell myself and like your own will. So you have to strike a fine balance. But I can say that now the biggest thing is when you grow as a business and you get into, working with different banks, you have all these other factors that you have to evaluate on a deal, to where you can't be so desperate to just do a deal that it hamstrings your whole company and you can't do any type of other growth for the year. So you have to be willing to, even though it's very difficult for me personally to do, you have to be willing to walk away from a deal that's not right now. You might be able to come back to it later. Who knows if you cross paths down the road, but you have to think 12, 18, 24 months ahead of, is this deal gonna do more good for the org or do more bad? And we just did that recently with one, so it's something that I'm sure we're gonna come across more and more and more. But we just had the experience recently of, it's the first deal that we have the money, we have the willpower, we have the ability to do it, but it's just not the best deal for us. So you have to, unfortunately, sometimes just walk away.
No doubt. And I think to your point, it becomes more important as you continue to grow, because if your goal eventually is to sell your business, or maybe it's not even to sell your business, but you're looking to build a well-oiled machine that is as self-sufficient as possible, you do have to consider, from a bandwidth perspective, from a margin perspective, is this deal going to make sense, as you alluded to, in 24 months, 36 months? Yes, it may work for a year, but are you going to stretch yourself too thin, and are you not going to be able to take on better opportunity because you do this deal? Or maybe is it outside of your geographic area? That's another big thing that we learned early on.
Yep.
Is our infrastructure, for us personally, was in the Northeast. And we were looking at doing deals West Coast. We were looking at doing deals in the South. And we quickly realized how expensive it is, especially we don't have private backing. We've bootstrapped everything from the ground up. It's very difficult to execute on the infrastructure that you're promising and execute on the value add that you're promising to these new businesses when you go outside of your geographic location. I mean, you even look at it at the largest scales. You have companies like a Dunkin' Donuts, or you even look at like an In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah.
Like In-N-Out Burger is a West Coast company. Dunkin' Donuts is a Northeast. Now they're going down into Southeast, but they were originally in Boston, and they've kind of stayed in that geographical area. It's very difficult. You look at companies like Walmart, you look at companies like McDonald's. That's why they're the tycoons. There's very few of them that can do it countrywide, obviously worldwide. The majority of large-scale brands or large-scale organizations, if you're not, I'll say tech is excluded from this,
yeah.
But if you are providing some type of boots-on-ground infrastructure, it is very difficult to do it outside of your geographical location. So I would also urge that to people of, if you're located in the Northeast or if you're located in the Midwest, focus on deals in your geographical location and build out from there. And don't think that you need to tackle things way across the country, or if you want to go countrywide, no doubt, that's completely fine. But there's tremendous amounts of opportunity in mid to small scale markets. There really is. I mean, you could build multi-billion-dollar companies out of the North or out of the Midwest. We saw a company that we know of in our industry that was out of Kansas City, Missouri, which is a small market, and they got some of the biggest multiples that we've seen in our specific industry. 28x EBITDA multiple, and they're in Missouri. They're not in New York City, they're not in Miami, Boston, they're in a mid-level market. So I think that's another thing, is don't be blinded by, I have to be in New York, I got to be in Boston, I got to be in these large-scale markets. I would almost argue that there's better niches in small to mid-sized markets where the large-scale players may not be playing in quite yet, or it's too small for them to be worth it. And that's really opportunity where new entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, people who are getting started can go in, and if they do a job at a high level, they can go in and succeed in those markets. And that's kind of our pivot of growth strategy now in terms of what we're doing. But
I think
I guess my other question.
with that being said, I think it's like you mentioned, you know, obviously, I think we were caught into it for a moment. You do a few things successfully, and you think like you almost have false confidence, and you think you can do anything, and
Yeah.
then it's like sort of sexy to like talk about with like other people in business, like yeah, like we're looking at the West Coast, like we've always wanted to
Hmm.
get out there. You can get caught up very quickly into sort of like chasing the red dress per se, of just chasing what might be attractive at the moment in business, because you might think that yeah, that would be really cool to be bi-coastal and be West Coast, but once you actually look into everything, then you have to, face the reality of the situation and realize that's probably not the best decision. Even though you might want to do something, having the discipline to make the right decision, not the one you want, is, I feel like, a huge part of it.
Huge part of it. And the one thing I was going to kind of kick over to you question wise, and I'll definitely add on to it, but explaining the dynamic of how when you're getting in M&A, and again, we're talking about non-private backed companies or VC backed companies. We're talking about bootstrap companies here, which 99% of people fall into this. Building the infrastructure sometimes before you're getting the actual deal, and how that is a stress on the business at the beginning, but why it is necessary. I guess talk a little bit about how we kind of had to do that and the stress that it put on our business for a short period of time before we were actually able to get some of these larger scale deals, and then they were able to come to fruition.
Yeah. So if you're trying to do anything at scale, just like anything, your reputation is most important. If you make, when you're out in the field and you're doing business to business, which is M&A with other organizations, your word is everything, your reputation is everything, and you're obviously making commitments and promises on the level of execution you're going to bring to the table. And if you do one deal, two deals, three deals, and you're saying you're going to execute at level 10, and you come in at level 5, then your chances of getting any new deals in that market are probably slim to none, because you're just kind of a bad reputation. So we chose to build out the infrastructure pretty much a year ahead of time of when we really wanted to start ramping and doing deals, quarterly at scale, and, had to hire 20 some people to prepare for that. And the stress it puts on the business is massive, because you're spending millions more on payroll than what you actually need to operate your current level of business, but you have to be able to stomach that it's an investment in being able to go out and get what you actually want and get your business to the level you want it to be. So for us, basically the cost is a few $1 million, that we, ate last year and still eating a little bit into this year. But you just have to be willing to commit to that, because that's the only way you're going to be able to execute at a high level without constantly chasing your own tail. And but what I mean by chasing your own tail is, before you have the few extra $1 million to build out infrastructure ahead of time on a deal by deal basis, you're literally chasing your tail, just trying to keep everything alive, and just trying to it becomes apparent in the middle of the deal, oh, we need this. Then you're forced to make bad decisions, because you can't take 3 months to find the right person. You'll just take anybody. And we've gotten caught into that multiple times in the past, of literally just needing a body and a seat. We did that once on we had dinner with someone on a Thursday because we literally needed a body and a chair on Monday. So you really don't leave yourself many options of getting the highest quality people. So we chose, after learning those hard lessons, to take a year, build out a high quality team, build all the levers and the systems and the processes and the automation that we know we need to execute at a high level. And now we're reaping the rewards of that, and it's paying dividends as we go out throughout 2025 and execute on what we built the infrastructure for.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to our last episode where we talked about, you have to view yourself, if you're a $1 million revenue company, you have to be thinking as a $10 million revenue company. You have to be thinking from a system standpoint, from a bandwidth standpoint, from an expertise standpoint. Is everything that I have in place right now going to work at $10 million? Because if you're doing M&A, obviously that's your goal. You're trying to grow your organization, and you're trying to do it in most likely the quickest way possible. I mean, it's a long grind in any industry to purely go lean and grow organic until you get to a certain scale. I think M&A, to get off the ground and to get to what I would say a 20 million plus revenue company, is where you're pretty large, you're a solid organization at that point. from there, yes, maybe you could explore, okay, we're going to pull back on M&A, we're going to go organic, because if you're doing 15% growth or 20% growth at that level, those are significant numbers. You're talking about millions of dollars of revenue increase. If you're a $1 million company and you're just trying to do organic, like $150,000 a year is not going to move the needle for you. That's not going to provide more opportunity for your people. It's not going to really you're not going to gain any value for your organization unless you wait for 10 plus years for that to continue to develop. So it's almost a necessity in this day and age, especially with the competition as high as it is. You have players out there in your industry, no matter what industry that you are, that they have either VC funding, they're private equity backed, they have more experience than you,
Personal
and
wealth,
they have more resources than you. So like your only differentiator is, to our earlier conversation, maybe you're in a niche market where you can go out and you're competing against other local level firms, but to compete against those local level firms, you had to build out the infrastructure in order to differentiate yourself and be able to sell that vision to the seller of, hey, this is why I'm better than the 5 other local firms that you're dealing with. So yeah, to the infrastructure standpoint though, it's a balance always, because you obviously need to keep the business afloat. You have to have enough cash on hand to continue to survive, even if you are, let's say, breaking even or losing money for a period of time. That may be a necessity. We went through that obviously for a period of time. It sometimes is a necessity to go through that, because it's not going to work in a perfect world where you can continue to bring on staff at the perfect level and you're going to continue to operate at a 30 or 40% profit margin and everything's going to be smooth sailing. There's going to be times when you are going to have to put it on the line and be like, hey, if I'm trying to jump up to this next level, we're going to need to put it on the line and run a little thin here so that we can get to the point to then be able to expand and execute on these initiatives that we're looking at. So,
and at the end of the day, that's not for everybody either. I would say
no doubt.
that to this date, the largest deal we've done, we literally put everything on the line and like ran the business to about as close to zero as you can go from just like a cash standpoint, to where like that's what it took to get that done. And without doing that, I mean, I think that'll always be the pivotal deal that gave us the resources and ability to continue to scale from there. That deal we got done about 2 years ago, and we've grown by about 100% since then. We would have never been anywhere near where we're at today without getting that done. So sometimes you do got to be able to put it all on the line and, like you said, take a loss for a period of time to get where you want to go. And that takes the vision to figure out where you want to go and realizing that it's not forever and it's not going to be what your life looks like long term. Some people can't make the small sacrifice to get what they really want, which is like, hey, we're not going to make any money for 6 months, but we're going to make way more money for the next 30 years because of that small sacrifice. So you just got to figure out what you want, and then figure out your path to get there. And I think to your point, neither of us have really a lick of patience, which is why I think we're a very good team, to where like we have the highest expectations on ourselves and the people around us. And for us, what led us to this world to where we're at is, like you said, if you have 10 to 15% organic growth in whatever you do per year, you're an extremely successful business. But just growing by 10 to 15% per year, like the prospects of like how big your business can get doing that is not very big. It's going to take you, 6 to 7 years to double, where, we're doubling now. I mean, we should be tripling every bit, like 12 to 18 months, to where you would have to have an extremely, extremely competitive and differentiated product and an insane marketing budget, I think, to drive 200 to 300% organic growth. So that's what led us to M&A as the path that gets us to where we want to go the fastest. And I think that, to really tie a bow on this in summary, you got to just get a deal under your belt. So take whatever you can get instead of trying to make the deal fit what you want, like figure out how you can just make that deal work, because you do need just to get one under the belt. And then you're going to learn all the lessons you need to just do it at a higher and higher and higher level along the way. And then you can get more and more selective. which I think being more selective just leads you to more opportunities actually, because then people know that you're not desperate. Like you are a qualified buyer. You are extremely experienced at this. And I think that that whole process can happen for us, it happened as quick as 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to learn and take your licks over a decade. You can accelerate that learning very fast. I think the key is though, just learn, don't do the same thing over and over and expect different results. So luckily for us, we did like a bad deal that we learned from really quickly. And then, we learn every deal we do. We're constantly pivoting and learning and changing and adapting to make us, as solid as possible. So I think just go and get the first deal under your belt. Just take anything you can get, and you're going to have to just make it work with your willpower and effort. But then after that, you can just turn yourself into a more and more and more and more qualified buyer.
No doubt. I completely agree. And anyone out there who is looking to do a deal, no matter what industry, this is our bread and butter. This is what we live to do, is we are doing deal negotiations 24/7. We're meeting with sellers. We live in this world. So anybody out there who wants to talk about a deal, or maybe you're looking to do a deal in some industry, definitely let us know. We'd love to have a conversation about it.
Follow us on all of our socials, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Until next time, stay disciplined.